Consulting. Ha venido trabajando con nosotros desde hace más de 10 años en los workshops de negociación y persuasión que hacemos todos los años en la Universidad de Harvard. De tal manera que, bueno, los voy a dejar con ustedes. Él va a hacer una breve exposición sobre los temas que va a conversar en el workshop que vamos a hacer este próximo diciembre, del 6 al 10 de diciembre, donde vamos a estar con él y otros profesores de la Universidad de Harvard. También nos está acompañando hoy Alberto Suárez, que es socio y director de la firma. Y entonces, bueno, la idea es que escuchemos a Michael y, bueno, lo ideal sería que pues él pudiera verlos también a ustedes, que ustedes puedan prender las cámaras los que puedan y, bueno, que estén preparados para hacer alguna pregunta. Bien pueden levantar la mano y les damos la palabra, o bien la pueden escribir en el chat. So, Michael, I did your presentation. I
Yes.
explained to the group that you are going to talk some minutes, and then after that they can send you or make you some questions. The duration of the session will be around 45, 50 minutes, 45, 50 minutos, de tal manera que podamos dar tiempo a la próxima sesión que tenemos a las 8 con la profesora Sara Budish. Mike, the microphones are for you.
Thank you very much, Gustavo. First thing, I apologize to everyone that I don't speak Spanish, I don't speak Portuguese. Ich spreche ein bisschen Deutsch, German, you know, and un po di Italiano, but no Spanish, no Portuguese. My daughters speak Spanish, but they're busy with other things. So I hope you can understand at least some of what I'm saying here. I also want to thank Gustavo and Cambridge Consulting for inviting me to come back and take part in another program. We've been doing it, Gustavo, for 8 years, maybe more, something like that, I think. And I've always been impressed by the experience of the people who come to the programs you organize from a number of different countries and from different kinds of work. And with all due respect to my colleagues, I think a lot of the learning takes place among the participants who share their experience and their best practices. So I'm really looking forward to working with people this coming December, which is very, very close, and I appreciate the chance to take part. I will teach on December 7th in the morning at the Harvard University Faculty Club, where the program takes place. And we're going to cover 3 different things that often are overlooked in negotiation. And I'll say a word about each one of them. The first is about internal negotiation within an organization, within a company, within a law firm, within a not-for-profit. I often, when I do training programs for companies and other organizations, have people fill out a poll in which I ask them, what is the most challenging negotiation you had this past year? That's the only question. What is the most challenging negotiation you've had this past year? And half of the answers I get, the hardest negotiation has been with their own colleagues. So we'll look at that on why internal negotiation is both important and challenging. But I want to push further than that. I want to look at how your organization judges success in negotiation. If you think about it, you might say, well, do we reach agreement? If you always come to agreement, maybe you're saying yes when you should say no. Maybe you're not being bold and ambitious. There might be some very difficult negotiations where you hope you'll succeed, you may not, but if you do succeed, it will be a great victory. So the first third of the program will be about internal organization, the way in which performance is measured, incentives, and that kind of thing. And I'm looking forward to people's conversations about that. The second thing that we'll look at will be ethics in negotiation. Now, that might surprise you. A lot of people think of negotiation as a battle where the victor is the strongest person. I think when we negotiate, we define ourselves, who we are relative to other people. What do we owe them, if anything? It may depend on the situation and the relationship. If it is an all-out fight, maybe we don't owe them something. But in other negotiations, the question is, must we be honest? Must we be honest about everything? Do we have to be fair? What about using pressure tactics? And I don't believe there are right answers to any of those questions, but it's very important that we ask ourselves that. And I know one thing for sure, and that is when we meet in December, people will have different points of view on this. So if there aren't easy answers, it's still very important to address the question. And the third thing we'll do that morning is look at what I call negotiation agility, being able to deal with uncertainty, to be able to improvise when there are surprises, and surprises can be good as well as bad. Most of my work has been in this area, so we're saving that for the last portion. So we're going to look at internal negotiation within organizations. We're going to look at ethical issues, and we're going to look at strategic agility and how you can be quick on your feet in negotiation. So that's a lot of material to cover. We will work hard. Gustavo and others will watch the clock to make sure we make good use of the time. I'd be very interested at this point if there are any questions or whatever. Gustavo, we did not talk about this, but are people going to email me, or are you going to get a question and then you'll read it for me?
Yes, Michael. And here is also with us Eduardo Moane from Peru. He is our partner in Peru. You know Eduardo?
Eduardo, yes.
Yes. And Nelson Bejar from Bolivia also. I don't know if, and some of the participants in our next workshop. Well, I don't know if you have any questions. One of the participants in this meeting today, we can open the microphones, or you can do it by writing. If you have any question. Eduardo, I don't know if you want to make some comments.
Not yet. Not yet. I'm looking forward to hear Michael. Difficult negotiations are the bread of every single day.
Yes.
But I'd rather leave the space to participants. We are having in Peru, Michael, very difficult negotiations due to a political situation. A lot of agreements have entered into default. Exchange rates, the dollar make a high up to 4 from 330. So all agreements in dollars are being renegotiated. So there has been a turmoil on difficult negotiations all over the sectors. But anyhow, I'd rather allow a participant to take the space.
Yes.
Cualquier pregunta que tengan aquí la pueden hacer o a viva voz, levantando la mano. si la escriben allí, nosotros estaremos pendientes también. Cualquier duda, Michael se ha profundizado el trabajo y eso es lo que va a trabajar en el próximo workshop, el tema de la ética en la negociación, un tema tan importante y que genera tantas dudas, y luego la agilidad estratégica, como lo acababa de mencionar, sobre la marcha de los procesos de negociación. Así que están abiertas las preguntas, las dudas, para los que quieran.
Okay, Michael, it is very, very interesting when you talk about the improvisation, no?
Yes.
You use the similarities with the jazz, no? You have your post every week about how to make the relation between negotiation and jazz, no? So can you talk for some experience that you recently have about some improvisation in some case that you can relate, or maybe in this political moment in the US, or any private case that you know?
Well, I know a number of cases, and it is also complicated here in the US, both politically and other ways, in a world where supply chains are clogged up and so forth. So there are a lot of those negotiations. I'm a little hesitant, Gustavo, to go on at great length about complicated negotiations that some people may know a little bit about and others don't know anything. We will look at, in the first material we cover on the internal negotiations, it's a story that is told in different chapters. And we will see how somebody tries to adapt, does something that's quite reasonable, but then something happens and the person has to be very agile. What I will say instead, because I think it'll be clearer to more people, is that you can't script negotiation. You can't write the other person's lines. So the fact of the matter is, there'll always be not just two hands, but at least four hands on the steering wheel. And the people that you negotiate with may have not only different interests, they may have a different view about how to negotiate. And if you're working with somebody who's collaborative and looks for opportunities to create value, that calls for one kind of strategy. If there's somebody that you don't fully trust, but you still have to deal with, that calls for another one. In a lot of negotiation books, this issue of agility is not addressed. And I've actually looked at other fields where people improvise. So for example, if a patient is very ill, a good doctor will come to a provisional, a tentative diagnosis, but at the same time, be very, very careful to look for things that would prove his assumption wrong. Always thinking about other ways in which the problem might have arisen and how to deal with it. Think also as well, believe it or not, of military doctrine, which would seem to be far from negotiation. But soldiers who are in battle have to be agile as well. They may be surprised or they may have opportunities. And I think we can learn something from musicians as well, jazz musicians, who in the real moment, just the way improv comedians can do it, know what to say and how to say it. So it's not as if you can negotiate by deciding what your strategy is and putting your feet on the gas pedal and just going straight ahead. You may have challenges you didn't foresee, and you may have opportunities as well. So part of that will be in everything I do on December 7th that morning. I came into negotiation through law, economics, game theory, and so forth. but those are very important, but they don't tell the whole story of negotiation, the behavioral side. So Gustavo, you've seen me do this before. I also improvise in my teaching. I have to, right? Because people in a particular class will be excited about one idea, will disagree with me, which is healthy, about some other idea. And I need to be able to deal with those different questions and comments. And the discussions that we've had, Gustavo, in the classes, I've learned a lot from myself. So I think you know how much I enjoy doing this. It's because I do not lecture, right? I do not tell people what to think. I try to raise difficult questions, and then we all take them apart and try to find useful answers. Is that helpful?
That's helpful. I have something, Michael,
Yes.
and probably we will have a participant from the mining sector of Peru in the next workshop, and hopefully you will be able to go deeply on this issue. Mining is the main sector contributing to the GDP of Peru. Nevertheless, communities surrounding the mines have learned something which is called you pay me or I stop the highway. That's
Right.
it, okay? Without any proof of damage or contamination or anything. We have Las Bambas is the main copper producer in the region, probably after Chile. And there are some communities at 200 kilometers, a national highway, and they have told them, or you give me 8 trucks of minerals so I can run them, or you don't pass in front of my town. So that's blackmail, absolute blackmail. We don't have a government. There's no authority in Peru, really. And there hasn't been an authority in these kind of social conflicts for the past 20 years. So mining sector is left alone on how to deal with this. So you can imagine the KPI of production against blackmail. And the main question would be, and this is one real case with a community surrounding a mine, which receives approximately $3.5 million per year to communities, because the mine didn't bought the land, they rent it, which is very smart, because in that way, communities keep having money, because if you pay for the land, they spend the money and they come again to ask for more money. But the issue is this, the directive of most of these communities steal the money and they do not give it to the people. So I was in a workshop, negotiation workshop, and one of the workers who is a part of the community, I said, but are you hearing you're receiving $3.5 million per year? And he said, I only know in Christmas they give me a doll and a panettone, which is a sweet bread that we use for Christmas. So communities are run by directives who are stealing the money, and the mine knows that. So it's an ethical problem. Actually, communities are autonomous. So the mine could say, well, it's their problem, but deep inside, it ends up being your problem. So this is an ethical problem. I've been trying to convince the mine to put, each time they pay, they should put a huge ad in the main square of the town with a copy of the check saying, today we deposited this amount of money, because it's ignorance. What's going on in Peru is ignorance, no? But there is an ethical problem. And the ethical problem, when you put it in balance, KPI, operations would say, let me work. I need to extract the mineral. So what do you think? Do you have an idea about this?
Let me go not directly to that question, but to a conversation I had yesterday. Many of the people here probably know the book. You can tell me what it would be in Spanish or in Portuguese. Getting to Yes.
Yes.
Getting to Yes. written by Roger Fisher and William Ury. I was talking to William, who's been a friend of mine forever. The book was published 40 years ago. And he described how, more than 40 years ago, he worked on a dispute involving mines in Kentucky, in one of our states. And there was a long, long strike between the union of miners and the operators of the mine. And William, when he was quite young, went down there with a very, very good mediator. And they finally worked out, they were working day and night, a deal which the union signed, the union officials signed, and the company signed after a long, long fight. And you know what happened after that? Nothing, because the union representatives, there were 6 of them, had all said yes, but the agreement had to go to the membership to be approved. And the membership voted 90% to 10% to reject the agreement. And what the negotiators had failed to do in that case was involve the people who are actually doing the job. So it's the same thing. You use the word ignorant. People are ignorant about the big check that is coming in. The miners voted probably wrongly against the agreement because they didn't understand the value that they were getting from it and what the company had agreed to compromise on. So the big lesson on that is there may be powerful people who aren't at the bargaining table. And unless you can get them to the bargaining table or you can inform them, you'll have an agreement in paper, but not in reality. So your example made me think of my conversation yesterday with William Ury. You're muted here. There we go.
Agreed. We need to find a way of incorporating these masses of citizens into the process, which is something the union doesn't want. That directive, of course, they don't want that. Just for you to imagine the kind of problems we have. Las Bambas they bought 4 buses to provide transportation for the child, for school. Mm-hmm. They have been available for the past 5 months. They have been bought. And the community is not accepting them. Why? Because they are negotiating to find out which family is going to be the one who will take the benefit of the 4 buses. So it's just amazing what's going on. But I agree with you. We have not enrolled the people, and the strongest power is in the people. The same thing is happening as with regional governors. The regional governors in Peru are receiving millions and millions of soles, and they do not execute anything. They return the money to the central government. But the people of those regions attack the central government when they should be attacking their president of the region. But why they don't do it? Ignorance. We haven't been able to tell them, you have the money, you decide, elect well your authorities. But anyhow, this is a social and political problem. It's a problem that leads more with the strategy. ¿Alguien más? Si no, yo.
So I'm standing by here.
¿Alguna pregunta adicional por allí? Podemos incorporarla.
Dale, Olivier.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for the opportunity to present a question to Professor Wheeler. You mentioned that in the lecture that you're going to give, one of the variable that you take into consideration in determining the strategy that you're going to take towards negotiation is the trust level that you have towards the other party. I was wondering if you also think that using techniques of speed reading people, like in Myers-Briggs type of personality, might also influence the strategy. If you're able to, within, say, a few minutes of the negotiation, determine what type of personality the other party has, that could also influence the correct strategy towards a successful negotiation.
So Olivia, how do you pronounce the name? I want to get it right. Your name?
Flambert. It doesn't matter. You could just say Olivier. Thank you.
But thank you for the question. And it makes me think of a number of things. So let me take them just in the order they come to my mind. First, you ask, can I trust the other person? With that question, you also to be thinking, how can I make it clear to them that they can trust me, right? And it's in what you say, how you behave, how they read you correctly or otherwise, what your reputation is, and so forth. So we have to put ourselves, we would say, in the other person's shoes. So trust is a two-way street. There are also ways in which trust can be built into a contract. If my wife and I were building a new house, we wouldn't give the contractor all the money up front, and the contractor wouldn't say, you can pay me when I'm done. There has to be some way that it's almost like rent, as we were talking about before. There's an incentive to go forward. Let me say, though, this is just me. I'm a little skeptical about the Myers-Briggs, and I know it's very, very popular, whether somebody is an introvert or an extrovert and so forth. The science behind that is fairly shaky. I think you're better off if you're trying to understand what another person is feeling at that time that you're interacting. And even that is difficult. I'm sure that Paul Ekman has been translated into both Spanish and Portuguese and other languages as well. It's Ekman, E-K-M-A-N. And he's very interested in so-called micro expressions, where somebody suddenly, without even thinking about it, raises their eyebrows in surprise or something of that sort. The challenge there is, even if you can learn, and you can learn to see these things more clearly, why are they surprised? What's their motivation? But at least there's something going on emotionally. Maybe they're surprised because you didn't mean to, but you insulted them, or they're surprised because they're very pleased at the offer. So I would rather not label somebody as all good or all bad, as outgoing or reserved, but I want to watch their behavior in that case. And I want to be very careful not to jump to conclusions. I think one of the secrets of successful negotiation is recognizing what you do not know. Recognizing what you do not know and have to learn as the negotiation goes on. So I remember we give an award at the program of negotiation to great negotiators. And there's a man, an Algerian, associated with the United Nations, named Lakhdar Brahimi. And he says you have to think about navigating, whether you're going over a desert or going in the ocean. You have to be navigating, and there will always be surprises. You want to have a good map, but your map won't be perfect. And there may be something on it that you don't expect. There may be something that you encounter. So he calls this navigating by sight, by what you see. And that requires you to have a plan, but not let the plan have you, right? You should always be looking for evidence that there's something else going on that you need to learn. And part of it is the question of trust that you started with. Can I trust this person? So you will never be taken advantage of if you never make an offer to somebody, if you're never honest to them. But it's not all or nothing. It seems to me you can reach out carefully and disclose something about what your interests are. And if the other side responds in a constructive way, then you can continue to do that. If you don't trust what they're saying you, then maybe you've got to be a little more careful about how you proceed. And that's what I mean about agility on this. But a very good question. As you see, it got me thinking about lots of things. And when you said lecture at first, I don't lecture. We're going to have a big conversation among people who have a lot of experience negotiating, and not just in the class time. But I think you'll find that over lunch and over dinner, this is an opportunity to talk about negotiation. And I don't work in international diplomacy, but I've learned a lot about negotiation from diplomats. I've done some mediation and arbitration, and for people who have not done that, they can learn a little bit from my experience. So I think it's great that you have people coming with real commitment to take their negotiation skills, which may already be good, and make them better.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. You're welcome. De nada.
Great. We have time for one more question, comments. We have here some that will be at the workshop on December. Larissa Landau will be with us. She is from Panama.
Yes.
And Ricardo Posada, he's from Colombia. We will have people also from Mexico, from Peru, different countries. Marco, ¿cuántos países están hoy aquí?
Tenemos participantes de 9 países del continente y en el workshop tenemos participantes de 9 nacionalidades. De 13 nacionalidades, disculpen.
Okay. We have here people from 13 countries. No? Yes. And Luis Delgado also from Mexico. I don't know if you have any comments, Luis.
Nadie hablo.
Uh-huh.
Michael, I was just working with a mine a month ago with the union and the mine, and on trust, which is something Oliver Flambert just mentioned. I suddenly, as you know, we are like you are the master. We don't deliver during the workshop, we improvise.
Yes.
So I improvise something, cut it, small pieces of paper, and give one piece of paper to each member of the union. There were 20 people between the direction and the negotiation team, and 20 executives of the mine. And I asked them to rank from 1 to 10, the level of trust that they have in the mine, okay? And the average was 4.3, which means that we were having a big problem. The mine, when I asked, which do you think is the level of trust the workers have on you, they did a 6.4, which is still low.
Yeah.
But anyhow, negotiation has stones in the road if you haven't built that trust and relationship at the onset or before the negotiation.
What's interesting is, we think of mining obviously as very hard work, sometimes dangerous work. There are lots of other situations, people in offices that wear neckties, and they're in a wonderful condition, but there's no trust within the company, that people don't trust the management. So this is a universal problem. And some of my colleagues have done research on this and how very good and capable managers can establish trust over a period of time and then lose it. And once you've lost it, it is possible to get it back, but it is very, very hard. So I think that's a universal problem. It's not just in those kinds of industries. I want to go back to one other point. You know, what was the number? We have people from 13 different countries, something like that, coming to the program. This is what Oliver Flambert said, you know, talking about trying to read other people. I'm skeptical about culture. Now, I understand that I grew up in a fishing community where, you know, there were some people who had just come to this country. There are some people who've been here for centuries, or their families have been here generations and so forth. Small community, everybody knows everybody. But not everybody is the same, even though they come from the city of Gloucester. And you can find books on how to negotiate with the Japanese. I think that's ridiculous. You know, it's as if everybody in Japan is exactly as the same. Is everybody in Uruguay exactly the same? No. Is everybody in Colombia or Venezuela the same? No, you know. So that's why, and I think it makes it easier for us in a way. You know, I've been involved in, you know, reaching agreement with people from very different countries, right? And I try to do it person to person as opposed to American to somebody from Germany or Italy or whatever the case may be. So that's my own bias. That's my own belief. Yes, there are certain matters of behavior, of etiquette. In the Mideast, in some countries, you never show people the bottom of your feet. In many Latin American countries, people are comfortable being up closer. In the US, a little further back. In some other countries, you know, I disappear in the ocean, you know, behind me. But even within those general etiquette cultures, there are people who are more formal and less formal and so forth. So the question is, what can we do that invites our counterpart to be honest with us and to be ready to explore how we can solve hard problems?
Very good.
Alberto, there is a question on somebody who has name iPhone.
iPhone, yes. You have a question, iPhone?
You raise your hand. Levantaste la mano, iPhone, vestido rojo.
¿Tienes una pregunta?
Estás apagada. Estás apagada.
I'm looking for iPhone.
Ahora sí, te oímos.
Lo apagó otra vez.
Lo apagaste otra vez.
I have to unmute.
Now.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. I'm Magali Febles from Dominican Republic.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. It's an honor for me.
Oh.
Tenías la mano levantada.
Ay, no, yo creo que fue que quise decir que estaba presente.
Okay.
Oh.
Bienvenida.
She raised a hand by mistake.
Well, I get to say hello to somebody who's named iPhone on the. I've never done that before, so it's a good mistake.
No, it's my phone. Sorry, but I am here like expected. Watching the conference, I think it's very interesting. So I want to learn about you. My business is beauty industry.
Mm-hmm.
I am the national director from Miss Universe organization, pageant in Dominican Republic. I'm the national director. Mm-hmm. But I love business because my study is in business administration and international business. So every time for me, it's a pleasure to have that kind of meeting and have the opportunity to learn more about the people who know more than me.
May I ask you a question? In the beauty business, are there supply chain problems now that you have to deal with?
in the business, well, I think everything after pandemic is very affected, and the beauty industry is not excluded, but we had to reinvent it, especially for me, because all the business in the fashion industry, the designers, the beauty industry, the cosmetic, everything is affected with the pandemic. Mm-hmm. We had to reinvent it. Now we go to compete in Israel, and we have to reinvent the way that we produce the pageant, and how we convince the sponsors, because we depend on the sponsors to create the event. Mm-hmm. And many girls do not have, the opportunity, especially in Dominican Republic, because it's a republic. And the people do not understand the positive of the pageant, because the pageant, especially Miss Universe pageant, bring the opportunity to each country to show to the people, to invite people through the competition for know the country. I think it's the best way to make to market the country, because you show the night of the pageant many parts of the country, and it's watching for 200 country, 1,000 million viewers. Mm. So it's very interesting for any country.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Sorry for my English, it's not pretty good, but I try to communicate my idea, and I understand very well. It's very interesting for me.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And welcome to Dominican Republic.
Gracias. Thank you. Well, vamos cerrando entonces. Si no hay más preguntas, we are just ending the webinar. And thank you very much. Gracias a todos por haber participado. Ha sido un placer compartir con ustedes y especialmente con el profesor Michael Wheeler. Mike, thank you very much again. Thank you for your support always. And we are going to say goodbye to everybody, and thank you for your participation. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michael.
See you in December.
Nos vemos en diciembre,
See you, Michael.
workshop que viene, donde vamos a tener el gusto de contar con Michael Wheeler, como todos los años. Va a ser la edición número 18 y va a ser del 6 al 10 de diciembre de este año. Bye, bye, everybody. Thank you very much.
Bye,
Gracias.
Alberto, Gustavo.
Bye, Mike.
Un abrazo.
Thank
Chao,
you so
Gustavo.
much.
Ajá,
Bye,
Marco.
Michael.
Todos invitados. En 10 minutos estaremos con la profesora Sara Budish. Acabo de colocar el enlace a través del chat. Están cordialmente invitados. Los esperamos.
Gracias.
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 Muchas gracias.
Michael, are you there? Eh?
Yeah, I'm there. Just was that all right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
I wanted to mention you something, Michael. We've been working for the last year with a company in Spain who has